citronella candle. It is raining pretty heavily here. It's been raining here for quite a few days, actually. It's quite interesting for us to be having this much rain at this time of year here in Texas. So I have my buggy, my mosquito zappy thing on over there, and I just lit a citronella candle right here just for extra because the mosquitoes are definitely out today. How are you, Desiree? Greetings, beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. So I wanted to do this video because yesterday I posted about a new executive order that President Biden signed yesterday. And I was in a few spaces. Oh, thank you. I was in a few spaces where there was some conversation being had around this. And there seems to be a lot of misunderstanding on both sides of this. Okay, so if you don't know what this is, I'll give you a brief synopsis. So yesterday, today's Saturday, right? So yesterday, President Biden signed an executive order against what he termed to be anti-competitive economic practices. Anti-competitive economic practices. And when you read the executive order on the surface, it can look like it only affects the large multi-billion-dollar industries. And a lot of the language is around preventing these huge conglomerates from buying each other out and creating monopolies in different industries. But the other part of that is that the executive order actually seeks to limit and or ban the use of non-compete clauses in employee agreements or contractor agreements. And when I was a part of these conversations, it seemed like neither side was really listening to the other, right? Because the employers or the people who are hiring contractors are like, this is horrible. This is ridiculous. How could this happen? And then the employees or the contractors on the other side are like, you big companies, you just want to, do all of these horrible things to us, and you just don't really want us to be able to work, and you want to hold us hostage and all of this. So let me give you a little bit of background on the non-compete clause, okay? The non-compete clause originally, okay, was instituted because what would happen is people would come and they would work for these companies and they would learn a lot. They would be able to upgrade their skills. They would learn new tools. They would learn new techniques. Sometimes, depending on the position that they held, they would be given access to certain trade secrets within the company. And what would happen is sometimes people would go to work for companies, learn how they did business, and then turn around and open up a competing company like right down the road, right? Like within a mile, within 2 miles, right down the road. And when they did that, they would, obviously solicit their clients, solicit some of the other, their previous coworkers to come and work for them in their companies. And so it was originally to ensure that if you came to work for a company, you didn't come to work for the company for the purposes of being able to get access to how they did business, just so that you could turn around and go and open up your own company. It also tends to be, it can be a bit of an issue for people who are in sales. And especially for people who are in sales or who are in positions where they're bringing in their own leads. So that's one challenge. And then on the opposite end, you have the other challenge of people who are coming into companies and maybe they did not bring in their own leads. So they would come into the company, work for the company. They did not bring their own leads. They would build kind of a lead base and build sort of a customer base because of the position that they had. And then when they left, they would take that customer base with them, right? They would solicit those customers. They would solicit those leads and say, hey, don't use that software. Come over here and use my software. Don't use that program. Come over here and use my program. Don't use their accounting firm. Come over here and use my accounting firm. And so it was a big thing. Well, as with a lot of things that start out one way and end up a completely different way, what started to happen, and this really and truly was an issue, is you would have people who would come in and they would work for these companies, and they would say, the company would say, okay, you need to sign this non-compete. Based on this non-compete, if you leave our company or are involuntarily terminated, you can't do this kind of work for this kind of company within a so many mile radius of where we do business. Now, why was that an issue? Well, let's say I was an IT professional and you hired me for my IT skills. You hired me for my skills, my insight, my forethought, or my foresight in information technology and my ability to do all the IT things. And that's what attracted you, and that's why you looked at my resume, that's why you brought me in for an interview, that's why you hired me. On the other side of that, this is where I have invested time and money to be able to learn and grow and cultivate this very specific set of skills which make me attractive to your company. So if I come and I work for your company and you say that the non-compete says that I cannot work, I can't do the thing that you hired me to do, which is the thing that I have invested time and energy and money into cultivating as a trade, you're telling me that I can't do that for any companies that are like yours or similar to yours within a 60-mile radius. Well, what that means for me essentially is a few things. It means that if for whatever reason or another I decide that we're no longer a good fit and I decide to terminate my relationship with the company, or if for whatever reason or another something happens and the company decides to terminate its relationship with me, well then if I can't work anywhere within a 60-mile radius of where you do business, for most of us, many people, that means that I would literally have to move to another city. Depending on the size of the city, I may have to move to another state. I may have to move to another completely different area of the country just so that I can work. Right? And let's say you are a nationwide company, which means that you have offices and operations in multiple cities in the state that I live in. You have offices and operations in multiple states around the United States. Well, then what that does is that puts me in a position where I literally cannot work unless, if I live in Texas and maybe your corporation is found throughout the entire Southwest region. Well, I have to move to the Midwest or to the Northeast or to the far west in order for me to be able to work in the capacity in which he hired you. And I've seen this be an issue in quite a few situations. There was I was in conversation with one gentleman, and he was saying that he had been hired, and it was a 2-year non-compete. It was and actually, interestingly enough, it was 2 years, 60 miles. Okay, he couldn't work within 60 miles. Well, the reason why he signed the non-compete as part of his work agreement is because A, he needed a job, he has a family to support, but B, he also assumed that that the company was looking to hire him long term. That was what they had discussed in the interviews. That was what they had discussed throughout his entire hiring process. This was a company that he was seeking to bring his skills, talents, and abilities to for a long period of time. What ended up happening was they hired him, and they kept him on for about 4 or 5 months. He came in, he did a lot of projects, he did a lot of work on that particular area that they hired him to work in. Developed the part. I mean, he did all kinds of things, right? Like, he brought the best of the best of the best of his skills, talents, and abilities to the purposes of bringing this company's vision to fruition. Well, what ended up happening was after about 4 months, 4 or 5 months, they found a few people in kind of this in hiring pool that were able to do that work for lesser, for lesser salaries. And he lived in an at-will state, which means they can separate from you. They can terminate your employment without giving you any type of very specific reasoning. And so they chose to terminate his employment. Well, the problem was that he has signed a 2-year non-compete, which means that for 2 years, he is not allowed, and in that particular, in his particular non-compete, it was, he was not able to do his kind of work for any kind of company, not just the kind of company that was similar to the company he was working for, but he was not allowed to provide those services to any other business within 60 miles of that company, which literally meant for him, because of where he lived, in order for him to find another job, he would have to take his entire family, and they would have to pack up, and they would have to move. Now, granted, they kind of went back and forth, and there were some legal teams involved. Needless to say, he was able to, they were able to basically nullify that non-compete because it kept him from working. And so there has to be, right, there has to be a meeting in the middle, right? Because as a company owner, you don't want to be in a position where you are hiring people and they come in and they work for you, whether it's on a contract basis or whether they are hired on as full-time employees. You don't want them coming, working for you, and then making the decision to go and, open up a very similar business right down the road from you and competing with your clients and stealing your employees and all those different kinds of things. And at the same time, you've got to understand that people in the workforce who are actively working want to be able to continue to actively work without having these restrictions that require them to move to different cities, completely different sides of town, completely different sides of the country, to be able to do the work that attracted you to them as a candidate in the first place. And so we have to be able to meet somewhere in the middle. And so what I want to offer you today are really two suggestions that you can put in place. One of them you probably already have in place, and the other one maybe not. So I want to offer you two solves for this. where everybody can meet in the middle. The first one is something that you probably already have, which is a non-disclosure agreement. Okay, a non-disclosure agreement basically states that if you're coming in to work with our company, you agree that you may be given access to some of the trade secrets, some of the very specific ways in which we do things, very specific systems and processes that we use to help make our company successful, depending on the kind of company. These people may be given access to formulas and all kinds of different things, data sets and all kinds of different things. And so a non-disclosure basically states that you agree to not disclose anything that you learned here, any of our information, to anybody, whether it's your marketing audience, whether it's your other clients, whether it's your staff, if you're a contracting agency. It basically means that you don't get to share the very private things that make our company successful. You agree to not share those under penalty of potential lawsuit. Okay, so you probably already have something like that in place, right? What you may or may not have is what is called a non-solicitation clause in your employment or your contract agreement. And what a non-solicitation clause states is that at the point at which our relationship is separated, and even while we are in relationship, so while we were in relationship, and to the point that our relationship is separated for whatever reason, voluntary or involuntary, you agree to not solicit our clients, our customers, and our employees, our contractors, and our partners for a certain duration of time, right? Following the end of that contract. So what does this mean? What this means is, okay, so let's use our company for example, okay? One of the services that we provide is VIP days. That's one of the services that we provide. And on those VIP days, we take everything that we worked with the client on in their strategy session, and we implement that into a project management system so that they can actually hand that project management system over to their teams, and their teams can get those projects completed. That's one of the kinds of VIP days that we offer. We offer another kind of VIP day, or actually a 3-day sprint, where we actually go in and implement that strategy, just kind of build everything out within 3 days, so that you don't have to use your company's resources to do that. We will use our team to implement that project, to complete that project, or as much of the project as can be completed in 3 days. Okay, so on our team, we may bring on, so for example, if someone wants to have their Monday.com CRM built out, right? We have experts in Monday.com who can go in, build out the entire system for our clients, okay? And these people may work with us on multiple projects, which means that they are exposed to and introduced to multiple of our clients. Well, in the non-solicitation clause, it says that if for whatever reason or another we choose not to utilize their services for whatever reason or another, whether it's, end of contract, voluntary, involuntary, they agree to not go and solicit our clients for the work that they do, or for any kind of work, right? So they agree to not solicit our clients. If they want to go and open up something like what we do, then they agree that they will not solicit any of our clients. They won't solicit any of our other team members who maybe they have collaborated with to help complete these contracts. So that prevents them from soliciting our clients, our employees, our team members, our VAs, all of those different kinds of things, right? And so the reason why I say this is a middle road is because what it does is it does not prevent that person from being able to work. And it doesn't prevent that person from being able to work in the industry and in the capacity in which we hired them, right? So if they separate for whatever reason, if we separate, they can still work. You just are not allowed to solicit our clients or anyone on our team for a certain amount of time. Okay, and that particular amount of time is something that you can discuss with your attorney. And while we're talking about attorneys, I want to make it very clear. Let me just go ahead and throw in this disclaimer. I am not an attorney, so you are going to have to get with your attorney about the best way to be able to implement this for you. So I'm just offering these two suggestions. Okay. Now, where do we have a couple of nuances here? Let me offer you this. If you run a sales team, and I'm not talking about like pity patty little bitty sales. I'm talking about very high level, very high ticket, very high level kind of sales teams. Okay, sales teams where you are hiring salespeople who have major leads, right? So some of the personal and professional contacts that they have without your company are multi-million-dollar companies, right? Maybe even billion-dollar companies. These are leads that they have. If they come into your company with those leads, then there needs to be some discussion about what happens if they are to leave. Okay, because where there can be a bit of a discrepancy is if I come, if someone comes and they work for your company in sales and they bring 75 leads, and they put those leads into your sales force or whatever, these are their leads, this is what they came to you with, and for whatever reason the relationship is terminated, then there needs to be some conversation around whether or not they are allowed to take their leads with them. Okay, now I'm not going to tell you what to do with your company with regard to this. This is a decision that you're going to have to make with your attorney. This is a decision that you're going to have to make according to your values. It's a decision that you're going to have to make according to, according to the type of environment that you desire to create for the people who are working for you. Okay. What I will say though is that this idea that I'm going to hedge my bets completely on the negative, completely on the idea that everybody who comes to work for my company is trying to take something from me, everybody who comes to work for my company is trying to, run my company into the ground. If that is something that you are experiencing and that's something that you're feeling and that's something that you're believing, then I would encourage you to really take a look at some of the practices that you have in your company. And that's a completely different conversation that we could have. You could schedule a discovery session if you want to, or a clarity call if you want to have some real discussion about what that means. But you do need to have some conversation around that. And you do need to go ahead and create some parameters and some standards around, whether or not those leads, you may have provided them with leads and maybe they don't get to take those with them. But then the conversation becomes, do I get to take the leads with me that were my leads before I started working for your company? So, just a few things to think about. Okay, so those are the two suggestions that I would like to offer, the two solves, and the two places where we can meet in the middle. One being the non-disclosure, the NDA, and the other one being the non-solicitation clause. So if you have any questions about that, go ahead and drop your questions down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your questions. I'd love to see your questions, and maybe I can answer them directly here in the chat, or maybe I can answer them in a video depending on what kind of question it is. So I hope that this was really, really helpful. Hey, Nana, how are you, beautiful? Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that this was really, really helpful. And If you want some support in terms of how to put this together, in terms of how to systematize this, and in terms of how to create those kinds of parameters in your company through your sisters through your systems and through your processes, then what I want you to do is I want you to click the link in my bio and schedule a discovery session. It'll be a quick session. It's a quick 15-minute call. I'll ask you a few questions about where you are and where it is that you desire to be. And then from there, I'll be able to give you some clear direction on exactly how it is that we can help you outline whatever the process is that you're looking to outline. Okay? So thank you all so much. This is Mrs. Jones, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye.